So let's start with a cube that brings together faculty and a postdoctoral fellow from ecology and evolutionary biology and LSA, a faculty member from the College of Engineering, and 7 graduate and undergraduate students from these same fields. This project is titled, What Robots Can Teach Us About Snakes, Communicating with Color and Motion. We'll now hear from Professor Allison Davis-Rabowski and postdoctoral fellow Talia Moore.
Snakes have evolved many ways to repel their predators, one of which is lethally toxic venom. But how does a predator know which snakes are safe to eat and which can kill them? Snakes can communicate their toxicity to their predators using visual signals called warning coloration, in this case, red and black banding. However, these signals are not always honest. Snakes can lie. You might think that this display shows a mirror image of a single snake, but if you look closely, you can see differently colored tails, different patterns of scales on the head, and different ratios of red to black along the body. These are actually 2 very different snakes, separated by about 65 million years of evolution. One of them is a highly venomous coral snake related to cobras, but the other one is perfectly harmless, related to the common garter snakes that you can find in your garden here in Ann Arbor. We call this phenomenon mimicry, and it's been the focus of my research since I arrived at the University of Michigan in 2012. So let's do a quick audience poll. Imagine that you are a very hungry hawk, and you have to choose one of these snakes to eat. How many of you think the venomous coral snake is on this side? A few. Okay, how many of you think it's on this side? How many of you wouldn't touch either snake? That is the smart answer. So the coral snake is over here on the right. But where we study reptiles in the Peruvian Amazon, snakes not only look the same, they can act the same too. Coral snakes can also have a warning display with curled tails and thrashing bodies that look something like this. Okay, so kind of scary. What about the display of a harmless mimic? It's strikingly similar, isn't it? But how unique is this display? Do all snake species do the same thing? And most critically, how important is the coloration versus the movement in deterring a predator? When asked that question at the end of a seminar talk 2 years ago, I gave my standard response about how the only way to truly decouple motion from color would be to have snake robots that we could program to act like a snake and then color in any way that we'd like. But that such a test remained firmly in the realm of science fiction. But Talia, who was in the audience that day,
I said, hey, it's totally possible, and I know how we can do it. So for my research, I use engineering tools to study animal movement. And so since I've been at the University of Michigan since 2015, I've been actively involved in the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, as well as the School of Engineering. Around the time of Allison's talk, I had recently met some engineers working on soft robots. And now soft robots are not really what you think of as robots in the traditional sense. These run on air instead of electricity. The shapes are pre-programmed during construction by wrapping fibers around rubber tubes. This means that you can tie them up and smash them with no damage to you or the robot. So this was all rolling around in my head when I saw Allison's talk. And as soon as I saw her snake videos, I knew this project was a gold mine. That's because it's usually really difficult to study how any animal movement translates into animal survival. Either you have to go out into the wild and get really lucky to see some animals moving around right before they get eaten, or you have to set up an experiment in a lab, which is not fun because when you put a bunch of venomous snakes and a hawk in a room together, someone's going to die. So I realized that we could replace these live snakes in this lab experiment with robotic snakes, so we could safely study how these hawks are responding to these different snake behaviors. So we had to figure out, how do we get a robot to act like a snake?
Well, first, you have to find out and actually quantify how snakes act in the wild when confronted with a predator that's trying to capture it. In this case, us, myself, CUBE member Dan Roboski, and our international team of field researchers. So this is what it looks like to hike through the Amazon. Can you imagine trying to find a snake in this complex habitat, even if that snake is brightly colored? Catching 2 or 3, maybe 4 snakes means it's been a great day for snake hunters in the Amazon. So now once you have a snake, you have to come up with a way to film it in a place that has a reliable source of electricity, even though you're in the middle of the jungle, and with high-speed cameras that are rugged enough to get wet and to work well at high temperatures. But Talia designed a way to do it, recording the response of snakes to a simulated predator like this. So now this snake, which is not venomous, does something different. It tracks the predator, it hoods its neck, and it gapes with its mouth. Thanks to MCubed and a Packard Foundation grant to CUBE member Dan Roboski, we've generated over 1,000 videos like this of 161 individual snakes representing 51 species.
So what do you do with a video once you have it? With MCubed in Europe, we've hired a fleet of exceptional undergraduates who are helping us to analyze each video. They're creating a database of snake behaviors and logging all the different ways that snakes respond to this simulated predator. The next step with our collaborator, Ram Vasudevan in mechanical engineering, is to track these snakes during the behaviors in 3D. That way we can mathematically follow each part of the snake body in both space and time and use those data to design the snake robots. Now you may be wondering, how well can we get a rubber tube to move like a snake? Well, a grad student in the CUBE, Dan Bruder, is working on equations that tell us exactly how fiber angle and air pressure translate into shape changes. These equations are already so precise that they can open up a combination lock using air alone. If you're interested to learn more about these soft robots, we have a demo in the poster session this afternoon. CUBE member Sridhar Kota has been able to hire undergrads dedicated to creating these soft robots to our snaky specifications. What we'll get as a finished project are soft robots that are safely destructible and can be programmed and painted to move and look like any snake we've seen in the wild. Then we'll present these snake robots to the hawks so that we can understand how snakes use combinations of color and movement to communicate to their predators. So this is the illustrated story of our CUBE and all the people who are working together to make it happen.
So now why does any of this matter? So our end goal with this project is to reintroduce the robots back to the predators, producing not only biologically inspired robots for the engineers, but taking those robots back to biology, real tests of how different color and behavior combinations can protect a snake from death. Now you might think that predation is no big deal, but getting eaten is a real and constant threat in nature, and which animals die and which do not is one of the main drivers shaping the world around you. This is a view that no snake ever wants to see. But this pressure from predators has created an amazing array of color and motion communication that we've just begun to fully explore. MCubed has allowed the two of us, as early career scientists, the amazing opportunity to pursue risky and interdisciplinary research that would have been very hard to fund through traditional sources. It has united labs across North and Central Campus, giving each group experience speaking the methodological language of the other, finding synergy in the tension between the precision of engineering and the messy reality of biological systems. Thank you.